Christ I am disciple. You're watching my channel. If you like what you see, you can like, share, subscribe. You can also donate via PayPal. The link is in the description. All praise be to the Most High God. The Most High God always comes first. This stream is brought to you by LIVE Products. LIVE, live now, we're alive now. We have a line of drinks and we also have a line of cleaning products. The line of drinks you see in front of you, you have sorrel, orange, fruit punch, grapefruit, Morby. You also have two other flavors that are not present there, which are lemon and lime. You also have cleaning products. The cleaning products look as follows. The cleaning products are the disinfectant. You also have dishwashing liquid. You also have liquid detergent, and you have fabric softener. LIVE, live now. We are live now. Let's get into what we want to talk about today. So, restore the Snyderverse or watch your movies flop. This is for DC and Warner Brothers, of course. And time again, that memo seems to not be able to, they don't seem to receive that memo. You know, that memo does not stick in their head. And so we're going to go through a lot of different things here. First one is today, Henry Cavill's been trending for a good portion of the day. Of course, in combination with that, we're also seeing greater Israel because of what is happening in Syria. That's also trending. But what's amazing is the trending that I'm seeing here, even though it's saying for me, it's random stuff, right? Stuff is happening in Sudan. You know, James Gunn is trending because of Creature Commandos. You know, so there's different topics that are trending right now, but one of them is the Snyderverse, which has to do with Henry Cavill, who is, of course, Superman, right? And we're going to go into more detail about that. Of course, this is what you see on the screen, the profile picture. My turn, and it's my turn to speak. It's my turn to answer and respond to the people who have been very negative about the Snyderverse. So we're going to get to that. A lot of people saying move on with the Snyderverse, but they're coming on our feed when we're talking about the Snyderverse to tell us that, which means they haven't moved on, right? If they moved on, then they wouldn't be in our comment section, right? All right, let's get into it, man. Let's get into it a little bit more. And for all my Snyder fans, all the DC fans as well, this one's for you guys especially. But of course, we're going to also cover Free Palestine. And again, if you don't free Palestine, the empire is going to fall. The Western Empire has been exposed like never before. And that's awesome because now we can see the truth of the situation. We even see the truth of what's happening in Syria. We learned the lies that were spoken about Bashar al-Assad in Syria and how he had to take certain measures to contain certain people. So it's very interesting what we're going to be going into when it comes to a lot of information we have for today. But you guys stay tuned, hang in there, because the first thing I'm going to look at is Zack Snyder's Justice League. Now, there's plenty of things to look at. I mean, Rebel Moon, Zack Snyder's Justice League. Zack Snyder kind of put down a lot of stuff that I still use today. And some of it's old stuff and some of it's new stuff. Like Rebel Moon came out, I think, last year. We just had this year, we had Twilight of the Gods. And again, all the themes and topics there really make sense because Twilight of the Gods, this is basically what's happening. We're in, literally, we are in the twilight of the Western Empire, twilight of the Western gods, twilight of the Western oligarchs. The Western oligarchs have been running things in the world for the longest while. And it looks like that's coming to an end. We'll talk more about that in a minute, but let's just keep it moving because the world is getting more and more aware of things. People are becoming more aware of things and so on. So first bit of news, Henry Cavill. He just posted this up on his Instagram today. He's in a little shop somewhere in the world. I don't know where this is. But he wants to celebrate some Warhammer news. So it looks like the Warhammer movie might just happen with Henry Cavill. So stay tuned, people. That's good news for Henry Cavill. You know, Warhammer's like his pet project kind of thing. And they were saying he was off of it. But it looks like he might still be on that in some way, shape, or form. So we're going to find out more about that. As you can see, the Warhammer hat that he's wearing with the Warhammer logo on it. So that's really awesome. Of course, yesterday we saw, let me see if I can find her somewhere here. Christina Christina. Hey, talking about that, Christina. I forgot her name. Did I delete it? I hope I didn't. Hold on a second, people. Oh no, I didn't. Christina Wren. Yesterday we saw Christina Wren, and she posted it up the day before, and she had the BVS film crew overcoat to keep her from getting wet, and she kept it since 2016, so it's an 8-year-old coat, almost 9 years now going on, and it just shows you how much impact the Snyderverse has. By the way, Christina Wren, for those of you who don't know, she actually is part Arab, part white. Her mother is Arab and father is white. And so when people talk ill about Arabs, actually she has a free series going on YouTube called The Hicksters. Just look for The Hicksters. Google The Hicksters and check it out. It's pretty, it's cool. It's cool what she's doing. And she's wearing a hijab and everything. And I think a lot of people don't know that Christina, she's got, Zack Snyder's a weird dude, man. He pulls some of the most interesting people. Like Gal Gadot's Israeli, right? Christina Wren's an Arab. You have the movies that Zack Snyder's making is always about the rebellion against the empire. George Lucas is the same thing, Zack seems to always be now. Okay, so there's a lot I want to say in the stream, and I have my thoughts are not extremely organized, but to say this, that Zack seems to always organize things and do things in a manner in which a lot of people don't forget to smash the like button, people. In a manner that a lot of people don't realize. He's always talking from a human perspective. He's always trying to bring humanity into the picture. Even with the zombie movie that he did, Army of the Dead, right? He was trying to humanize the zombies, you know what I mean? So our humanity is always examined. And you know what's the weird thing? The zombies were actually being mistreated in Army of the Dead, right? They were being exploited, And so all of that's very interesting. So, Zack's commentary on things and his stories are very interesting when you look at them and you keep on piecing them together. It's really about things that happen in reality that he's fictionalizing, and he's telling these anecdotes of these real stories, So I just find it very interesting, okay? Anyway, Christina Wren yesterday was doing this, as you know. And then even more interestingly, if I play this is actually a video, so let me play it. So I was on Christina Wren's page on Vero, and she's saying, "You're still keeping me cozy on a rainy day." Guess whose shirt she's wearing? Isn't that dope? Since 2016, ladies and gentlemen. And then this is cool. So I responded to CJHLFC's post saying to restore the Snyderverse, make the Batfleck movie, release the haircut. Richard Citro and Ben Affleck were tagged in, the Batman. And you can see the fight scene. Chris Valentino, he's the one showing this great fight scene here. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? When I put this post, I responded. Guess who liked it? That's right, Richard Citron. Restore the Snyderverse. All right, so with the Christina Wren thing, she responded, and then yesterday Richard Citron liked my post, and I'm like, okay, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Because we're pushing for make the Batfleck movie. That's what I'm more doing. Of course, there's the other set of Snyderverse fans who are pushing David Ayer stuff, and that's also taking a foot. That's going somewhere, but I'm not really into that. As you guys know, I just I'm not supporting David Ayer anymore because he just disrespected the fans. He disrespected the people trying to push the movement. So I just forgot about him. But having said that, it's very rare to Richard Citron would like anything that I post. I mean, that never happened. So there must be an awareness somewhere, because it's clear that the actors, they like the Snyderverse. It's clear that people in the industry know that we have been speaking about this, and this has not gone away ever. You know, I look out for my boy on Twitter also, who does posts. I haven't seen him post anything of late, but I know we're busy doing different things, and we're trying to, support different efforts and stuff. But it's we're all going to come back together and support this one venture very soon. I'm very sure of it, because James Gunn's Superman movie, I believe, is going to flop. I just believe that, and I think after that, well, here's something that's interesting. Okay, now I got this actually from from a YouTube channel. Actually, this is not from Twitter. But Bradley Lowe, who's on Twitter, who's from South Africa, he says, zero hype for Creature Commandos. All these fake DC YouTubers and gun toxic fans telling everyone that it's the best thing since sliced bread suddenly went radio silent. This is rookie numbers. James Gunn is way over his head. Rotten Tomatoes can't save Gunn. And if you look, I believe this is in the first week of release of Creature Commandos. It's ranked number 7 in terms of all of the features on HBO Max. So this is HBO Max here, or HBO America. Doom Prophecy is number 1. Harry Potter is number 2. The Sex Lives of College Girls is number 3. Number 4 is Like Water for Chocolate. Number 5 is Superman and Lois, which is an end series. So that's even ahead of Creature Commandos. Dragon Ball Daima is ahead of Creature Commandos. It is the 7th highest viewed thing that week in America. And it just goes to show you that what we've been saying all along, that DC's dead, is a fact now. And Gunn has so brought down the brand that even Joker, which was supposed to be a movie that was supposed to, coming off of that $1 billion earner with the first movie, the second movie didn't do well at all. Right? The second movie didn't do it. It's supposed to have done better than the first movie, and it certainly did not do that. It did make decent numbers. I think it's broken even. I think so. But with respect to its performance, it's just nothing compared to the first movie, And it all goes to show you this, that DC is dead without vision. And currently, the vision for DC that Warner Brothers has is not a vision that the majority of DC fans who go to see DC movies in the cinema are interested in seeing. Whether they're casual DC fans, whether they're hardcore DC fans are not going to support these movies. Even if you talk about the general audience on top of that, the general audience is not going to support these movies, right? And it's getting, all the movies are getting bad word of mouth on release, so that their shelf life, their legs are short, and they're failing. They're flopping. That's why I said, restore the Snyderverse, or keep on having your DC movies flop, because they'll all flop. And almost with certainty, I can say the James Gunn Superman movie is going to flop as well. Okay? Not to mention James Gunn lies just about everything. I don't even focus on the guy. I just wanted to mention this because in lieu of everything, and this is why we have a strong case, when we see Henry Cavill trending, Henry Cavill is trending on X, okay? Henry Cavill is trending on X, and Henry Cavill makes one post, and it's 1.5 million likes on Instagram. Okay, and he's talking about Warhammer. He's not even talking about anything that has to do with DC. And look at his following already. Look at his ridiculous following. People are excited for anything Henry Cavill is doing. Why? Because Henry Cavill made his name with Man of Steel. Henry Cavill wasn't known in the West for anything until Man of Steel. And everybody who sees Henry Cavill says he's Superman. Everybody. Brandon Roth doesn't get that. Brandon Roth played Superman. the guy who Superman and Lewis dude, he don't get that. Why? There's a difference between TV and movies. Movies are much far reaching, right? And the second thing is, Brandon Rock, when he did his Superman for the movies, nobody really vibed with it. People were like, this is a chick flick. This is rom-com. This feels like a rom-com. You know what I mean? It was a serious, much more serious movie than any Christopher Reeve movie, but nonetheless, it felt like a rom-com. People didn't, sweet boy Superman, soft boy Superman. That's what Brandon Rock and Bryan Singer's a guy known for action. And he just didn't deliver the action, right? And Henry Cavill delivered the action. Henry Cavill gave you a Superman who was very decisive when he made up his mind about things. Henry looks like Superman, by the way. I'm not saying Brandon Roth doesn't look like a version of Superman, but when you think of Superman and you see Henry Cavill, you just think, that's Superman, okay? There's no other way to look at it. And he's so diverse as an actor. I saw him as Wolverine, and that dude looked like Wolverine. I saw him as in Mission Impossible. I saw him as the CIA corrupted agent, and he looked like a CIA corrupted agent. The guy embodies whatever. The Witcher. You can't think of The Witcher without thinking of Henry Cavill now. The guy really embraces the role that he has to take on. He takes it very seriously. And because of that, he's a really fantastic actor, right? And he stays in ridiculous shape as well. He's a fantastic actor. And to be able to surpass this guy, and, people have been saying all kinds of things. He's stoic. He's whatever. Henry, and the thing about Henry is Henry doesn't have to say a lot. He gives so much off with his body language. Like, he don't have to talk a lot. So The Witcher, he wasn't talking much in The Witcher. In his little cameo in Deadpool and the Wolverine, when he was Wolverine, he didn't say nothing. He just gave him a look, and he just looked the part, right? When you saw him in Superman, he still hasn't spoken a whole lot in Superman. In Man of Steel, he had to speak, so he was talking quite a lot. Had a lot of background. But once he became Superman, you weren't hearing him speak a whole lot. And then in BVS, he didn't speak a lot in BVS either, but carried so much weight with just his body language and just the way how he was acting and carrying the role. And then in Zack Snyder's Justice League, again, he wasn't speaking a lot. So we haven't actually seen Superman speak a lot in those 3 movies. And Zack has made him a big-time superstar because Henry Cavill's so good at what he does. Even in Mission Impossible, he wasn't talking that whole lot. He was talking, but he wasn't talking a whole lot. He's just good. He's just a physical actor that embodies things. And he's just good in certain roles. I've seen him verbose in things. I've seen him in verbose movies. He's what was it? Something called Uncle. He spoke a lot. But I'm just saying, Henry can take very few lines and drag them out and really just extract everything from them. And that's what makes Henry so incredible. But having said that, Zack really picked the right ones to do the job. And no matter what people do when they bitch and moan about X, Y, and Z when it comes to the Snyderverse, the truth be told, the truth is that anyway, that not only did he pick a great cast, but Zack Snyder knew what the characters needed to be. Okay, and we're going to go into that in a little bit here before I go into Twitter and deal with the other things that we want to talk about. So Superman, let's get to the Superman part of it. So Superman, throughout the different stories, whether it's Man of Steel, whether it's BVS, whether it's Zack Snyder's Justice League, Superman has been very consistent in terms of one thing. He's been developing, he's been forming, but Superman, the theme here is Superman has embraced humanity. This is very important to understand. Superman has embraced humanity. From Man of Steel, we saw the conflict he had having to deal with humanity that did not accept him for being different to them. They knew something was different about him. And what did they choose to do? Humanity chose to bully him, right? We saw the bullies in the school try to bully him, and he had to stay disciplined, had to stay composed in spite of being bullied, in spite of being placed as the outsider, in spite of being ridiculed by his friend, who later be his friend, that is Pete. And it's just interesting how that community, even though they didn't have concrete evidence that he was different and he was Superman or whatever, these people who he grew up with, they started to keep his secret for him. See, initially, what's great about some of these stories is it's not how you begin, it's how you end the story. And that's true about almost anything in life. It's not so much important about how you start something, which it's important to start at least, It's really how it all comes down and ends. You think of the story of Job in the Bible, you think of the story of Samson in the Bible, you think of the story of Moses in the Bible, and so on, Jesus and so on, right? People always thought the story ended when Jesus was crucified, but it wasn't, right? The story continued, and it continues to this day. If you are a Christian and you believe in the Lord Savior Jesus Christ, right? If you're somebody who reads the Bible, etc. Okay. Now, why am I saying this? Because when we look at Superman's story from Man of Steel, now this is Superman. The highlights that you're seeing in front of you are of Superman in Zack Snyder's Justice League. Okay. This is Superman who's gained his confidence. This is Superman who has been brought back from the dead, so he's not afraid to face his mortality if he has to. So he's more fearless. He's more forthright. He's more about very protective. And that's interesting because, again, all of these attributes, and if you guys look at my Facebook or my Twitter, you'll see that I have Henry Cavill's Superman as the Superman that I represent, that represents me, because of the depth and the values that Superman holds. Okay. Now, what I was going to say was, in spite of all the changes and evolution that Superman had, the one thing that was constant throughout Man of Steel to Zack Snyder's Justice League is Superman's commitment to humanity. His commitment to humanity, in spite of the fact that there's always, in almost every single movie that we watched, except Zack Snyder's Justice League and BVS, humanity was again trying to annihilate him in the form of Batman, in the form of Lex Luthor. Humanity was not trusting of him in the form of the senator and the witnesses that came up to witness against Superman. The Wally guy who lost his legs. When we look at Man of Steel, same thing. You see, even before he was known as Superman, even before he was named Superman by some military guy, he was always seen as an outsider, even in his community. But as we said, it's not how you begin, it's how you end. At the end of that story, the community was protecting him. The community, Pete and the priest who was the bully, right? They turned around and were trying to cover for him. He could confess who he was to them, and they kept a secret. Smallville started to keep his secret. And this is a very important thing, because as the priest said to him, it's a leap of faith. It's a leap of faith. You have to believe. You have to have faith in people. And in a way, instead of trying to protect yourself by staying to yourself and being intimate with yourself, and it's not, you can't reveal everything to everyone, okay? There's circles of intimacy, right? So you have, like, you have the general public, which will know the general you. Then you have your family, who will know you even better and even more. And then you have things like your spouse, who will know, like, your inner workings, how you think, how you reason, how you process things, like that. Or sometimes your parents as well, if you want to divulge it. Or you have very close ring of friends who even know more about you than even your spouse may know, because there's certain aspects of you that your spouse doesn't really care for, and like your passions, your desires, maybe your hobbies, maybe things like that, and you share with those people, and so they know that dimension of you. So there are different rings or circles of intimacy, right? But having said that, it's interesting that by Superman, he never really fully overtly said, I'm the dude, I'm Superman, except to the priest guy. He was like, I'm the guy that, General Zod's looking for. I'm the alien, okay? But he didn't say it to anybody else. And notice, he said it to a priest, so the priest wouldn't tell his business to everybody, and say what you want about the Roman Catholic priests and, the pedophilia that happens in Roman Catholic Church. They didn't disclose it. They kept everything in house. So if they had to discipline a priest for that, they did it in house. Priests don't really talk other people's business, which is really cool. It's a kind of code. And so when Superman was speaking to the priest, I thought that was very interesting, because as much as the priest gulped, he was willing to keep that as a secret. And I thought it was kind of cool. Even Pete Ross knowing who he is, you know, they kind of, he's kind of like an unspoken something in there. It's not just Clark's mother that knew that he was Superman. You know what I mean? I think the community knew. They didn't have solid evidence on anything, except for probably the priest when he admitted. But I think they knew, okay? And they still protected him and defended him. Don't forget to smash the like button, people. So ultimately, in the end, Superman builds this commitment to humanity based on his mother and his father, how they saved him, right? How they took care of him. And also, I believe the values that they put into him. And also, I believe the other thing that really got him, because he was moving around helping humanity all the time, right? He helped the bar lady, for example. He helped the oil workers on the oil rig. He was helping the fishermen. And again, when we are introduced to Superman, the first act of kindness that is done to him, saves his life pretty much, is a fisherman tackling him. And even though he's talking tough and everything, you could tell the fisherman was looking out for his well-being, his life, right? Even though he scolds him very highly and he calls him greenhorn. So the point I'm making is that in as many journeys around the world, which I think were very important for Superman, he had to be on this journey to know humanity in a much deeper way. I think that is what made him have the decision that he took, because he interacted with all kinds of people. He interacted with bullies. He interacted with good people. He defended good people against bullies. And again, this attribute of Superman, this development, this fostering of him wanting to save people, wanting to help people, wanting to help the poor, the helpless, not just save people, because it's not just about saving people, because he was saving people from people, right? He was saving people from people who were taking advantage of the situation. So it wasn't just save humanity blankly, but save the oppressed, the helpless, the powerless. If you were to think of Superman, you would probably think of him as a human rights activist. Human rights activists, this is what they do. They try to make sure that, people are not taken advantage of, that their basic needs are met, there's shelter, food, clothing, um, um, you know, um, you know, respect, that they have freedoms, right? So I think Superman's kind of like that. But the thing about Superman is he's not affiliated with any organization. He's not affiliated with any government. Even though he grew up in America and he calls himself an American, he's not really American. He's mostly global, and he goes all over the world and he does all kinds of things. So when you look at Superman, and I was so glad that Zack Snyder didn't say, and the American way. He didn't include that term in there because when we talk about the American way, it's different to the way that the American people behave amongst themselves and the American people may behave and interact with other people, right? The American way is the American policy. And their policy when it comes to foreign policy is hegemony. It's world domination. It is we're the big dog and nobody else must contest us, you know? And the way how they carry that out is just like how George Lucas said. It's just like the evil empire where Darth Sidious rules. They really are the evil empire. I mean, after World War II, there's no way else to say it. And you know, when I say these things, I expect repercussions. I really do. Because I'm in the third world speaking this stuff to you guys. So if someday you guys hear I'm dead, don't be worried. There are consequences to these things. You know, it's a hegemony. It's about absolute domination, which means they behave more like dictators to foreign countries, and they actually do, at least the IRS does, behave like a dictator, like a tyrant, like a mobster to the American people, terrorizing them. They rule by fear. They rule by fear. They rule by if they can't destroy your economy by creating conflict within your own people to turn them against you, then they're going to assassinate you or get you to flee and depose your regime, as we saw with Bashar al-Assad in Syria. And they trump up lies. They trump up propaganda against you. They said that Bashar al-Assad used chemical weapons against his own people, and that's why he's such a nasty guy and an evil dude. He never did that. There's no evidence of chemical weapons in his country. They said that Saddam Hussein did the same. They said that Gaddafi, he murdered a whole set of people in a certain region of Libya. It was all lies, ladies and gentlemen. All lies. And so they trump up all of these things. Now they're going after Moderna in Venezuela. They sanctioned these people. They sanctioned Assad in Syria. This was all to topple the regime. They put sanctions on Venezuela. How are the Venezuelans going to live well? And then they're accusing Moderna, and they're saying he's rigging elections when he didn't rig anything. These are all lies, ladies and gentlemen, to get Zionist leadership into certain positions in certain countries. And they don't, or terrorists, as is happening in Syria right now. We have terrorists running Syria, and they are killing people left and right. I can actually show you examples of this right now on Twitter, and I may. It depends on how long the stream goes. But we're talking about Superman, okay? And I just wanted to talk a little bit about Superman because I think that Superman's everything that the American way is not. Their policy against people. They are very elitist. They're very, they think they're special. And because they think they're special, they think they're better than everyone else. And because they think they're better, and even the population thinks that in America, I believe, because a lot of people copy them. So it must be something desirable about them, which is nothing's wrong with that. But the problem with it is when you feel you're better than another human being, nobody's better than anybody, not even me. I'm not better than you. You who are watching this thing, I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've done. I'm not better than you. I'm a human being just like you. We're all human beings. We all have the same needs. I still have to go to the toilet. I still have to take a dump. I still have to inhale air and exhale air. I still have the same desires, I guess, like you would have, which is acceptance, fitting into something, having function, having purpose. It's the same thing. We're human beings. You know, racism is one of the dumbest things that ever happened. Now, if you talk about genealogy, that's a totally different story. But when you talk about racism, racism is stupid. It's stupid. It's as superficial as your skin. You know, it's the dumbest thing ever. We all look different. We don't look the same unless we're identical twins. And even then, we still have differences. You know, why would we want a world where everyone looked the same? What's accompanied with racism is privilege. And certain people don't want to give up the privileges they have and make the playing field even. It's the same thing with America. America doesn't want to have an even playing field with everyone in the world. doesn't want a multi-plural world, but that's inevitable. That's what we're heading towards. And I've never said this on public medium, but I'm about to say it. I prefer to go to Russia if I got to go anywhere than to go to the United States of America ever again. I don't even care for it. And that's crazy because this platform, most of the technology and stuff that we use right now is American companies. And I'm not saying all American companies are bad, but there's always an agenda going on for world domination. And this is what they're about. They're not about using their power to elevate other nations, to elevate other people, so we could have a multi-plural society where we could discuss things on an even playing field with everyone. They've been going in, they've been taking lands, they've been renaming lands because they've had the might and the power. Nobody's afraid of their might and power anymore. No one. The world wants to move forward in a peaceful way. You look at the Russians and what they're doing with BRICS, which is longtime partners that they have, China, Brazil, India, Iran, longtime partners. The point is, anyway, that BRICS, why? Well, I'll get into that some other time. Let's just keep it up, keep going with Superman, okay? So Superman, like I said before, he's pro-humanity. He's about helping the helpless, the powerless, the weak, the feeble. And we all love to root for an underdog, don't we? We all do. Even American people, we love to root for the underdog. We like to root for the guy and see him come up from nothing and become something, But the story's not over. Once you become something, then the next thing is, are you going to give back? Are you going to help the people who helped you to get where you reached? Or people in general to give back? And that's the question. I was talking to a gentleman on Twitter recently, and he's the American exile, and he was talking about, how, the Federal Reserve, they just print money, but they just print money, and that's how they get their money, and that he's against taxes. And I had to explain to him that governments get their money from taxes, and that the Federal Reserve can't print money unless it's backed by gold. So you have to have the thing that actually has the value. The money is backed up by the thing of the value. What happens is the Federal Reserve prints new money all the time for a particular reason. And a lot of people do not understand what these elite people do. And so I'll just explain it to you guys a little later on. I'll just give you a glimpse of it, okay? So, for example, in my country, the politicians there, they're considered the elite because they have a different lifestyle to you and I, okay? Now, the thing about it is, when a politician gets into power, it's usually because of backing and funding from the major big businesses in any given country, okay? The corporations, okay? In return for that, they're going to formulate policies that would help to enable these corporations to do better. So this is why the corporations invest in them. They call it investing. Now, what happens is that these politicians, they may have buddies or affiliates, or they may have family members, or they themselves may have owned companies or little businesses which are involved in some part of the industry. So what they do is once they get into ministries or they get into the different portfolios that they're given, they look to enrich their businesses. But in so doing, they get contracts from these bigger corporations that sponsor them and get these bigger corporations work, but they also subcontract underneath that so that their little company or their little business gets a kickback in the sense that they get their friends or family or themselves, their businesses employable. And that's how they make money. And in so doing, they also embezzle money. What I mean by embezzling, what is stealing and embezzling? So for example, I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, that a sports stadium needs a flag put down. They would embezzle money through this means. They would find out the price to get a flag, but they would inflate the price to maybe 10, 20 times what it is. They'd give the company that's making it the biggest share. They may take 30% of that for their small company that's affiliated with that big company for some reason. And the money that actually was needed for raw materials, for getting the flag, to put it down, all of that, that would be a fraction of the cost, maybe 1/10 of the cost. So ultimately, in the end, they pocket all this money, which would have been used by the ministries that they had for something else. So they get a kickback to the corporations by employing them to do it, but because they subcontracted it, they get a portion of that, and that's what we call kickbacks. It's legal, but it's not at the same time. Meaning, it's not legal because politicians shouldn't be involved in business while they're doing their political duties, and two, it's not legal again because it's conflict of interest. And not only that, it's illegal because they also, while they're doing these contracting, if it's linked to a politician, their business, it's like they're stealing money because they overinflated the price. So that's what makes it illegal, and that's fraud. Now that happens very commonly all over the world. Many governments are corrupt like that. Okay, instead of using the money to help the people, so that those funds are freed up from the ministry to help the people, instead those funds end up siphoning off to the elite. And so the money, the big money, circulates among the elite, as we say, the corporations, the oligarchs, and the politicians. It's a very corrupt setup. You know, when you look at places like Petrotrin and why these companies ran down, it's because the management of Petrotrin, which is the elite, they would suck up most of the money and then again contract out to their buddies and friends instead of putting out a public contract for the best suited person at the best price. So that's not what happens. And as a result, their buddies and friends get the contracts, and the money stays within a certain sector of the population, and they don't give back. They don't invest back in the communities when they get all this money. These oligarchs, instead, they're very stingy with their money. They don't want to pay out to other people. They use it to pleasure themselves, pleasure their families, get on extra trips, get extra boats, houses, and all that kind of stuff. So this is the corruption that happens. So the money's not ever going down. It's not going down to the people. It's staying in the hands of corrupt politicians and the oligarchs. It circulates among them. And very little comes down to you and I. And this happens globally. What Vladimir Putin tried to do was get rid of these corrupt oligarchs that are in his country by putting extensive laws in place so that they had to reveal all their finances, to make it public so the public could know. And this is where, now war is another place where you can launder money. So there's a lot of money laundering that goes on in my country, and at various levels. Then you have money laundering because my country is associated with the drug trade, with the sex trafficking trade, and so on. But this is not new. A lot of countries are involved in this. This is actually the most. What has surpassed the drug trade is the sex trafficking trade, specifically the child trafficking trade. It's the number one crime now in the world. Crimes against children is so ridiculous now. There are so many ways in which. The other thing that's, I think, the second most trafficked trade is organs. So trafficking of organs is the second highest traffic trade. So human beings and human life are valued almost at zero. And it's very scary what's happening in the world today. And I just got, like Michael Jackson said, they don't care about us. Okay. So when you talk about Superman, Superman's the opposite of that. Superman flies in the face of that. This is the war we are fighting, ladies and gentlemen. This is the war we're fighting against those people who do not care anything about you, who are in leadership positions. And they really don't care about you. They want you only as much as you can serve their interest. And so Superman flies in the face of that. Okay, let's look at Batman for a second. I know I'm taking a very long time with this video, and I do need to go out and do some business out there. Batman is a similar mindset, just a different approach. So Batman also believes in defending the helpless and the powerless because he knew what it was like to be helpless and powerless. Even though he came from a very rich family, he had been a victim of a horrendous crime in which his father and mother were murdered, and the person who perpetrated the crime escaped, and the authorities never caught him. And so as a result of that, um, he had a heart for the helpless and the powerless. And so Batman is a little bit different to Superman in that Superman will try to help the helpless and powerless, poor people, rich people, whatever. But mostly Superman looks out for those who can't speak for themselves, right? Batman's a little different. Superman didn't come from a rich family. He came from um, a rural family, country folk. Superman came from the country, whereas Batman came from the city. So Batman's more of an urban legend, whereas Superman's more of a global legend, but that came from a rural background. That's why nobody really knows Superman like that. Smallville is like one of those small country towns. Superman come from a small country town, whereas Batman came from a big city. So Batman's approach to things is preventative. He prefers to prevent something from happening. And so his methods and means are much more callous. They're more ruthless. They're more brutal. Now, he doesn't kill. He's not the Punisher, okay? He's not a guy who just executes people, okay? He doesn't do that. However, he has killed people, okay? And but Batman, like Superman, he's really about defending the helpless and powerless, but he's not a poor person. He never came from poverty. He never will be poor. He's always been rich. Whoever's advising him and the people around him have made him had him have great investments. He's a filthy rich guy. So it's kind of ironic that a rich guy would identify with poor people in being a victim, right? So this is why Batman does what he does. And he uses all his resources, all of his, monies and everything to try to stop crime. Batman's main thing is crime, stopping crime, okay? Whereas Superman, he tries to help humanity in any way possible, whether it's inspiring them, whether it's talking to young people and letting them have something to aspire towards. Superman is about, if you can help somebody, who maybe needs to rush to the hospital, or, a cat out of a tree or something. Superman helps. He's a humanitarian, okay? Whereas Batman is not necessarily a humanitarian. He's more, and his theme is justice, of course. He's more about crime and purging crime and corruption. So Batman would, hunt down, for example, white paper crime criminals who are linked to sex trafficking, which was linked to drug trafficking, linked to body part trafficking, that kind of thing. Batman would be involved in that. And he is very loosely associated with law enforcement because some of Batman's methods are illegal. Just quite frankly, he breaks the law on certain things. But the spirit of the law, Batman, Batman will, abide by the spirit of the law. But when it comes to the actual, the actual law itself, the ironclad law, he breaks a lot of laws. Okay. And some people say, the police are behaving something like Batman. Well, no, Batman, though he is somewhat fascist, which he is somewhat fascist, I'm not going to lie to you. He is also, he's not like the police in this respect. Okay. The police are more militarized. They're more, Batman doesn't necessarily travel in a pack. It's not like a whole bunch of Batman, taking on the world. That's one. Two, this is the weirdest thing of them all. Batman doesn't like someone giving him orders. So he's not military in that respect. Batman beats to his own drum. He does his own thing. Okay? Nobody's in control of Batman. So he's kind of like a renegade vigilante, which is why they call him a vigilante. He's a renegade. He's kind of like the Wild Wild West kind of guy. You know, he has all the resources and everything to move in the quiet of the night. He moves in the quiet of the night for a reason, because he's really trying to exact vengeance like Zorro in the night. He's more of a vigilante. He's more of a, he kind of skirts the line between a good guy and a bad guy in the sense of, you know, sometimes he's running from the law. Maybe, you know, at least on a given night, they're trying to catch him, you know, and he's disappeared on them, especially the law that doesn't know about him like that. You know, rookies and stuff would want to take down the Batman, for example. The experienced cops would be like, okay, good luck on that. You know? So what you saw in Zack Snyder's Batman v Superman, for example, where the rookie saw Batman and started firing at him, you know, just firing off rounds on him, and he got out of there, was interesting because it showed the dichotomy that new guys on the block don't know about Batman. It's the veterans who know about Batman, and they don't bother to harm him because they know that ultimately, in the end, things that they can't do as cops, he can do as a vigilante. So they kind of give him a pass. They turn a blind ear to certain things, and they call him the mysterious Bat, right? However, in BVS, we learned that he's getting more violent, and he's actually killing people, and or getting people killed. Let's put it that way. And he's kind of crossed the line, his own standards and values. And you hear Alfred say new rules, you know, because that's not typical Batman. You know, Batman wants to get these guys behind bars. He doesn't want to kill anyone. He doesn't want to see people branded and then go to prison, and knowing that when you brand them, they get killed. You know, it's kind of like a sentencing of them. So even though it is Lex Luthor behind the killings, it's still something, you know. So, you know, Batman, the general Batman that we know about, he generally is somebody who wants justice. So that's, I know it sounds ironic because he breaks a lot of the rules to get justice, but just like Zorro breaks a lot of rules to get justice, and Zorro will kill you. Okay. But Batman's kind of like that. He's like a Zorro. Okay. He's not as, you know, Zorro's time was different to Batman's time, right? Zorro was more in a different era. Zorro and the Three Musketeers. When I think of the Three Musketeers, I think of Zorro for some reason. I guess because Zorro used swords, the Three Musketeers used swords. They didn't really use muskets. And Batman's kind of that sort of thing too. He doesn't use swords. He uses more like grappling hooks and stuff like that. And he won't beat you with his bare hands. But Batman's very much that kind of character, right? Batman still wants justice, but he will use the legal system. He will use the systems available. So the police, you know, he gives you all the case, all the facts. He catches the guy. He gives you the incriminating evidence, and he gets out of there, or he leaves it behind. Sometimes he doesn't even show up. The person's there. He calls into the police. He says, "Come pick up this guy." All the evidence, everything is there, and he's not there when they get there. Or he may be in the shadows watching to see that they pick up the guy and get things done. You know what I mean? So Batman's not one of the. He's a shadowy character for that reason, because he can't really just come clear out, you know, in front of everybody. You know, like they have certain comic books where they, you know, Bruce Wayne was talking to everybody, and Batman was talking to everybody right alongside the commissioner. That really don't happen unless you're talking about Batman 66. You know, Batman, he has limited interaction with the police. Okay. Right? He does talk to Commissioner Gordon, and they have a kind of understanding of what needs to be done, and then he does his thing. Batman is a sort of a loner, at least in Zack Snyder's Justice League version. He had a partner. He had some partners. Some of his partners died, so he basically books it alone. Of course, there are different versions of Batman. There's the Bat Family, and there's various versions of Robin, you know, and so on. But suffice it to say, Batman and his butler, Alfred, They basically run it alone. He might have taught others, but they still book it alone mostly. So Batman's like the lone wolf kind of guy in life. You know, the person who he sees wrongs happening, he doesn't like it. He's not going to just stand aside and do nothing, but he's not going to do it openly either. So he gathers all the intel on the people doing wrong things. You know, you've seen these movies. You know, Knight Rider, Street Hawk, The Equalizer. Uh, you know, there were a ton of shows like that in the '80s. For example, there was another one. This guy who was a judge by day, but he was a vigilante by night. I'm trying to remember what it is. There's several different movies where a guy's living a double life pretty much. You know, he's executing judgment in the night and justice because under the cover of the night, you know, this is when the bad guys come out, you know, to rob, steal, cheat, lie, whatever, commit murder, whatever. So that person's out there hunting them while they're hunting their prey. So it's like a hunter of the hunters. You know, it's just very sexy. And that's Batman. So some of us in life, we don't like what's going on, like some of you guys there, and we expose things. We expose to the public what the truth of the matter is, and we're kind of like Batman in that respect. You know, the guys who seem untouchable, the guys who have all the power, seems like they're gonna exploit other people, and we're like the small guy out there, and we're like, no, you're not gonna get away with that. You know, Julius Assange, WikiLeaks, he was kind of like a Batman because in journalism, at least, he was exposing, you know, the injustices and the lies and the propaganda that was circulated by governments and people doing wicked and evil things. Now, eventually, they caught up to him and they arrested him, you know, but pretty much that's Batman. Batman kind of operates seemingly outside the laws of the you know, outside of the law, but he's not really. He's the spirit of the law. He's really upholding because the system is so corrupt. He has to um, he has to break a few laws to implement the fullness of the law. And when I say this, he's not breaking laws to kill people. He's breaking laws to get at the real big guns, where the police can't do it, where, you know, the judges can't get enough incriminating information. He'll get it. So that's Batman in a gist. And he can fight like crazy. And he has some cool toys to get him into places and to get access to certain things he needs to get access to. So that's Batman pretty much. And for all the journalists who are doing the journalism, you know, with Palestine, for all the people, you know, the watchdogs, for all the whistleblowers, you know, like Snowden and Company Limited, who are living in Russia right now, these people, all of these people are, to me, like Batman. Yes, they broke a couple laws and they're wanted by, say, for example, the United States of America, but basically the spirit of what they're doing is right, because nobody would be able to incriminate the wrongdoings that these different very powerful people have been doing and very powerful systems have been doing were it not for these people. And that's what Batman's all about. And that's why we love Batman. When we talk about the Justice League, you got to talk about the Trinity. You got to talk about Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. And what's so great about Wonder Woman is, and it's interesting that Zack Snyder used an Israeli for this, and I'll tell you why. Because there's some events happening in Israel, and it's not being covered in the Western media at all, but it's really prominent in Israel, where a significant amount of Israelis and increasing amounts of Israelis in Tel Aviv and elsewhere have been having rallies, campaigns, protests, all kinds of stuff going on. It's not being televised against the Netanyahu regime. They believe that the regime has made Israel less safe. They believe that the regime has actually desecrated the Palestinians. They literally say They've taken away the rights and privileges of the Palestinians. They also went in hard on the settlers, and they don't like what the settlers are doing, and this minority that has such a voice now in government. And they're also against what Netanyahu and the settler people who are also both in their legislative system now, and also in their parliament, what they call the Knesset. They're calling for these people to go. Now, they also want the hostages back. And they also believe that the measures that they have taken have affected the lives of the hostages. And they say the blood of the hostages are in their hands. So I will get into that if I can. I know I'm taking a very long time on this video, but let's talk a little bit about Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, by opinion, I don't know why Gal keeps on trying to promote the IDF. I think she's stupid to do that. But otherwise, I think she has a heart. I think she cares about the Palestinian people. And she's been censored for a while. I hope she is able to free up and actually speak her mind with respect to the Palestinian people and not be under duress about that. Because I truly believe that Wonder Woman is probably, I think out of all three of them, I think Wonder Woman is one who knew that her job was to help humanity become better. She had misconceptions about it in Wonder Woman 2017. She thought she could, solve all humanity's problems by getting rid of Ares. But she found out, no, that's a part of a condition of humanity. And there are good people and the bad people. And there are people who have dark sides to them and they have good sides to them. So she kind of came to terms with that. And then she now is trying to shape and foster the good sides of people. And that is what basically Wonder Woman is about. Like Batman, like Superman, she is all about helping the oppressed, the powerless, the people without voices. She's a humanitarian. She was part of the United Nations, actually, in the comics. So Wonder Woman is that. Now, what makes Wonder Woman different to Superman, for example? Batman, we know already. He's preventative. He's law. He's breaking, tries to stop crimes, and he's investigative and that kind of thing. Wonder Woman's different to Superman and Batman in that she wasn't raised by humans. Superman was raised by humans. Batman was raised by humans, right? Alfred and his parents. Superman came from a wealthy place. Batman came from a wealthy place. Superman came from a middle America, farming, small village, small community farming, right? Wonder Woman came from a godly place. She came from an otherworldly place, which was Themyscira. She came from another world. And she'd seen how people in that world could get together, work together quite well, in peace, in harmony, even though the world that she lived on, these people were training day and night for war, just in case war came. Okay, there's a whole war here. The whole freaking Themyscira, they're warriors. Okay, now even though they're warriors, they have a senate, they have representation, they have a queen, they have order, they have structure. People live in unity and harmony with each other. So Wonder Woman knows what a world unified and working in harmony can look like. And as a result of her having that vision and having grown up in a world like that, an ideological world, though mythical, gives her a totally different perspective on things. And she's very adamant about certain things. She's very adamant about human rights. She's very adamant about women's rights. She's very adamant about children's rights, about human rights. So she's very clear on what works and what does not work in a society. And that foresight is what makes her so forceful on certain issues. So if she has to eliminate somebody, she has to kill someone, she knows why she's killing them. She knows why she needs to take this measure. She's very, very clear on these matters. And it is something that I think a lot of people miss. That and Mr. Marston, William Marston, he did a great job on, and that women tend to, at least I wouldn't say all women, but not only are women intuitive about their children and people they have affections for, they have a sixth sense, as they say. But women also, in society, they have pivotal roles in shaping societies and all of these characters. And it's very important that Wonder Woman be a woman. It's not Wonder Man, okay? It's not Wonder Trans Woman, okay? This is Wonder Woman. And there's a reason why it works, okay? And why people are so drawn towards Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman, out of all of the Trinity, is probably the only member of the Trinity who she has a direct sort of attachment to humanity. What I mean by this, whereas Superman was seen as an outsider, whereas Batman is seen as an outsider. Batman can't do what he's Batman shit in public, okay? Wonder Woman is the only one that validates Superman and Batman. What I mean by that is Wonder Woman could step out in public and walk among human beings and get respect. They're not going to see her as an alien, even though she is an alien, right? She's not human, right? They're not going to see her as that. She has the confidence when she walks among human beings as Wonder Woman, or even if she walks among human beings as Diana Prince, she commands respect almost immediately. And the reason being that she knows, and I think the world knows that she knows, what a world working in harmony and in peace looks like. Because she's been in that world. She's been in Themyscira. And I think that's a critical point that a lot of people miss and they don't grasp, which is what makes Wonder Woman Wonder Woman. Okay? So she's very different to Superman. She's been raised very different to Superman. She's been raised very different to Batman. She's coming from a completely different perspective. And what's so cool about it is it's the woman's perspective on the world. Wonder Woman gives you the woman's perspective on the world. She's not just a battle warrior. She's a nurturer. She is a someone who's communicative. She will speak to you, right? She's not just war. And what Patty Jenkins was able to bring to the table was how conversational Wonder Woman was. Even in a warlike environment, how she understood what a woman or a mother would feel about her children, even though she'd never been a mother herself. The way how she communicated with other women, the way how she communicated with young girls, the way how she communicated with men who are under invasion or whatever. She has that sort of motherly, but not really affection for people, which Superman can't give, Batman can't give. So she has that affection, but yet at the same time she has that direction. She's very. If you look at her, how she took down the hostages, how definitively she did it, how definitively she reminds me of. She reminds me of my mom to some degree. She reminds me of women figures I see in my life who have direction, who have accomplished a lot, who have direction, and yet are still so very kind. They're very sure about what they need to do. They're very sure and confident about what they need to do, but yet they have that affection, that kindness, that softness that is necessary to encourage people along, to prod people forward, to give people the confidence to move forward. And that's something that Superman can try to aspire to do, but men can't do that shit. I'm sorry. I'm just saying we have limits. And one of them, we tend to want to use force where women will use coercion. They will use persuasion. They will use women, and it's a gift. It's something that women only have because they're so very conversational as well. Women tend to be able to encourage you, to boost your self-esteem, which, as a man, you always want respect, right? They are able to There's something nourishing about them. I'm not saying it. I know that sounds kind of stupid, but I'm saying that women tend to nurture people, and if you don't have a woman in your life in any sort of way, you've never had a mother, or you didn't have a you never had a grandmother, or you didn't stay with your aunt or something, or maybe a teacher, a female teacher or something, you will not have those things. Women refine people, whether it's young girls or young boys or their husbands. They make everything better. They make things enhanced. They make you pay attention to details you would not pay attention to. They make you aspire to want to be better. And that's not the same as what Superman does. He may instill hope in you and stuff like that. But like Wonder Woman kind of refines people. She has a way of dealing with people in a manner in which they elevate. Okay, so I think that that's what makes Wonder Woman versus, say, for example, Superman. Superman also, like Wonder Woman, he's chosen humanity. Wonder Woman chose humanity long before, from way, way, way back, right? She knew that, this was a job, this was a task at hand. She was very certain, again, she's very clear about what she needed to do. Superman, on the other hand, was not clear on what he needed to do, right? Because of his circumstances. And unlike Wonder Woman, who very rarely, okay, human beings would hate, right? Superman, on the other hand, he would be hated, right? The world had mixed views on him because, again, he was thrust into something. He was born into something, and he did not know who he was. He didn't know what his purpose was. But Wonder Woman knew what she was. She knew what her purpose was. She didn't know exactly what she was, like in terms of a weapon. She didn't know she was a god. But she knew that she was there to help humanity, save humanity, etc., etc. And that's why she lives among humanity. This is something she knew. She was clear on that issue. Superman wasn't clear on that issue. He had to find out about that and learn who he was and all that, because unlike Wonder Woman, he lived, millions and millions of light years away from where Earth was. He was, as a last minute resource, he was thrust into that situation away from us. He didn't even know who his parents were, right? Not to say that Wonder Woman knew who both her parents were. She knew one of her parents. She didn't know both her parents, right? And again, the other thing with Superman is he grew up with an adopted parents, right? Him and Batman. Batman grew up with Alfred, his adopted parent, and Superman grew up with adopted parents, right? He grew up with the Clarks, right? But Wonder Woman grew up with her mother, her real mother, Hippolyta, her real mother. She grew up with her mother. So it's a different dynamic altogether, and therefore a different perception of life, a different direction of life. And what these characters have to offer, is all different and separate from each other. Even though the common goal is to protect humanity, is to help the helpless, is to help the powerless. They go about it different ways. And that's what's beautiful about the Trinity. So why am I saying this? Because we actually have these kinds of people in the world. We have people who want justice to be done because that helps humanity, consistency in justice, and they look for ways and means to make that so. Okay? They act on it. Now, what makes a superhero in today, a common person, a superhero, is the action, acting on what you believe. Acting on how you were raised, right? It's your action. If you're inactive, you're just there standing on the by side like a spectator, then you're not a superhero, right? So when we talk about the Justice League, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about different kinds of people, right? Now, Wonder Woman is, mostly it applies to women, I would say. But of course, some people will say, no, I'm a man, and I think there's a little Wonder Woman in me, in that I'm clear on how the world should be. I don't know if I agree with that. But what I can say is, because you never grew up in a world Or maybe you have. Maybe you've grown up in a microcosm, a small part of the world with your family where you saw love and care. You had both parents, you had your mother and your father. You learned values, you learned virtues. You realize the world can be a better place with these values and virtues because you've seen it implemented in your home or in your small community. So maybe you're right there. Maybe that in that way you can personify Wonder Woman and you're clear on what needs to be done. But I don't know if you have that kind of woman's touch. See, that's what makes Wonder Woman Wonder Woman. That woman finesse, that woman's way of emotionally inspiring people and taking them to the next level. Because that's what Wonder Woman does. She enhances what's already there. She would take a little girl, and the little girl has dreams or aspirations like this little girl here, and she's able to. And Gal does it so well on the screen. She's able to communicate with her in an inspirational sort of way. That a man cannot do. We just can't do that. That's not our thing. So there are aspects of Wonder Woman, I'm sure, that men share, and boys and girls and other people. I'm sure. But I don't think the complete package of what Wonder Woman is necessarily something a man, as much as they would like to say that, we're gender neutral on this, I don't think so. I think there's certain things, feminine things, and I remember Deborah Snyder stressing on the feminine things about Wonder Woman, Patty Jenkins stressing on the feminine things about Wonder Woman. In fact, just to make that a very important point, I remember women crying on the screen when they watched the Amazons charging out to the armies, the German armies that were coming at them, and I think they started to cry because they never seen women in that sort of light ever. And what was amazing about that is the way how these women were coordinating with each other. The way how they fought wars was different to how men fight wars. And that, even though men fight wars with a brotherhood, men fight wars with brotherhood, right? Sometimes. These Amazons were working off of each other. We never seen that before. Literally, physical violence off of each other. And so that had never been seen before, right? And on the screen, ever. This is what made Wonder Woman something that Wonder Woman is an amazing film because it showed us how women would approach something. And I'm so glad Zack Snyder did not direct that movie and Patty Jenkins did. It is a one-of-a-kind kind of movie. And you think about it, it's an incredible movie. I thank God it was a woman that directed that film. Because we wouldn't have gotten those moments. You were seeing how, if women were warriors, how they would treat each warrior, how in death they treat each warrior, how they led battles. They fought from the front. The queen led the battle. She was in the front, old school style, amazing. Now, of course, this is an ancient group of warriors, and back in the day, ancient warriors with chariots and all of that led from the front. The king was in the front. The king was in the back. King led from the front. That's how real warriors, that's how real war was done. Which is why the Palestinian people think of Sinha to this day as a real warrior, because he fought on the battlefield. He was there. He was in the action. He was in the forefront of the battle, and that's why they appreciate him, and he's become a great martyr, because he's actually in there doing it. He's in there fighting. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't happen anymore. Generals don't fight in the front lines. They send out people to die in the front lines and stuff like that. So anyway, Wonder Woman was an amazing film. But what it showed us is who Wonder Woman was. And unfortunately, Patty Jenkins could not replicate that in Wonder Woman 84, it paled in comparison. The story writing of Wonder Woman was so amazing, and Patty so complimented that. I mean, Zack Snyder, of course, wrote the basic story, and they elaborated on that. He watered down certain parts and brought up certain parts. And even the No Man's Land scene of Wonder Woman was just fantastic. Just a totally different demographic. This woman is going to save people. She doesn't even care about the opposition. She does not care about fighting against someone. She's interested in saving lives, and that's just a totally different dimension of thinking. And it's kind of like the aspiration of what the United States was supposed to be, but not what it is. Their policies are empire. Their rhetoric is, we want to spread democracy to the world. We want to free people. We want to give them freedom and liberation. But the truth is, they keep on installing dictators and terrorists and destroying democracies and destroying the will of the people and what the people want. In fact, in their own government now, even Donald Trump coming into power, he's not going to do the will of the people. The will of the people is ceasefire. The will of the people is no wars. The will of the people is let the Palestinians be free. So all of this doctrine that this lamb-like beast has fed us, it's a lie. It's a lie. And we have false prophets in terms of, the Messiah is going to come. And when the Messiah comes, they need to have, a new temple on Jerusalem and all this crazy shit and kill out all the Philistines. And it's just a lot of crazy shit that's false prophecy. And it's crazy. We're literally seeing it now. But it isn't quite, the end is not quite nigh, because we still have AI to play a role in everything and start, really being draconian. It hasn't gotten there yet, but it's getting there. It's getting there. Things are definitely going to be different. So that's Wonder Woman, right? And I spent a lot of time on these characters. I'm spending a lot of time. It's like 2 hours. I'm an hour and 22 minutes and 6 seconds in. So I've been spending quite a lot of time here talking to you guys about these different characters, elaborating a bit on them and what makes them different from each other, but how they're connected to humanity. When you talk about superheroes, humanity comes first. The reason we even care about superheroes is because they care about us. These mythical characters care about us. We're the focus. Just like how, in the Jesus story, Jesus cares about us, It's kind of like that. All right, so let me talk about the other three minor characters that are not the Trinity. So we had Flash here. And again, when we see Flash, the first glimpse of him in Flash is interesting. Flash is very interesting. I'll show you guys what I mean. So the first time we saw the Flash was in Batman v Superman. And what was he doing? He was stopping a theft at the store. He uses speed to bring justice and to catch the criminal. So that's Batman, right? He was behaving like Batman. But then we saw him in Zack Snyder's Justice League, and the first incident when we saw the Flash, he was saving someone's life. So yeah, he was saving the store owner from getting shot or getting robbed, but he was also stopping crime. In the second incident, he wasn't stopping crime. He was actually saving lives, right? He saved Iris West's life from the truck driver. So Flash can do both things. He is sort of an investigative guy, because obviously he becomes like a CSI kind of agent, where he's I forget what they call it, but he's doing investigative research. He's analytical. He's in a lab doing analytical research, right? And he's also at the same time somebody who can save someone. He can protect someone. Spider-Man, something like that. Spider-Man, and that's why they say, compare the Flash to Spider-Man in Marvel. Spider-Man uses, again, his extra senses and his movement and stuff to stop crime and also to save people, right? He's another humanist. So the Flash, of course, at the end of Zack Snyder's Justice League saves the world. He also brings back Superman through creating a charge. So he's saving, 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 saving. That's what Flash does. But he's not only saving, he's also sometimes catching criminals, dealing with crime, and he has some villains that he has to deal with. So the Flash is a very interesting figure in that respect. Again, the Flash, of course, besides his speed, is someone who his father and mother, his mother's been murdered, his father's still alive, but his father's in prison. So his story is even different to Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. Remember, Batman's both parents were murdered. Alfred took care of him. Superman don't know his real natural parents. He grew up with adopted parents. Wonder Woman knew who her mother was, then found out her father was the deceased Zeus. Okay? And here we have now the Flash, whose mother was murdered, father was implicated in the murder, so his father's incarcerated, so he had to grow up on his own, visiting his father. He has no one to take care of him, and then something happens, and he's able to become the Flash, which we never really found out about, but it is what it is. So he's an interesting character. He's a mixture of Batman, and he's a mixture of Superman or Wonder Woman. Well, mostly Superman. And he did say Superman is his hero, so that makes sense. All right, so that's the Flash for you guys. I kind of have to speed through these guys. I hate to do that, but I have to. You have Cyborg. Cyborg's interesting in the sense that the circumstances that happened to him are thrust onto him because of his father. Again, like the Flash, he has a living father that's alive. But his father never paid attention to him, really still has limited interaction with him, unless he's talking about something technical. But Cyborg, who loved his mother was taken from him, he's thrust into this, okay? Cyborg is like the persons like you and I who have mental disabilities. Anybody who has disabilities of any kind, whether it's depression, whether it's some illness, whether it's you're born with lack of sight or you have limbs that are amputated, or so the kids in Palestine, for example, will be like Cyborg, where they lost limbs and stuff like that. So Cyborg, Ray Fisher, portrays this character that's kind of broken, at least mentally. He's broken to start with, and of course he goes through this journey where he finds his relevance, his meaning, and he's able, with the company that's around him, again, Wonder Woman, again, having that magic of being able to, instill within a person the confidence and the inspiration necessary to keep them moving forward. She takes him under her wing, and because of that, he finds his worth, he finds who he is, and he's able to execute one of the most important things, which is destabilizing the world-ending unity of Mother Boxes, which would have destroyed the world. Well, it actually did, but Flash turned back time and bought Cyborg enough time to disable him. So, again, initially, Cyborg's not looking to save the world at all, right? So he, unlike all the other characters, he, except Aquaman, he's not looking to save no world, okay? He just trying to deal with his problems, and then he finds out he has gifts that he can offer to the world, and therefore save it, and he finds his purpose. So he didn't know what he was, he didn't even know what the hell he was. And I don't think he still knows what he is. He's still discovering himself at the end of the movie, but at least he has the confidence to know that he can impact the world in a very significant way. And I'm sure there's a lot of you out there that suffer from mental illnesses or physical illnesses, or you have some sort of illness, or you have some disability. And there's so many of us that deal with those things. And sometimes you're trying to find yourself in this world, especially in this world where so many bad things are happening. And then you can't get your footing because either you don't have enough money to get rent or find a home. You may be working in a job and you're wondering if you're just wasting your life away. You're wondering how the world is going. You would be Cyborg. All right. A lot of you guys on social media that tweet Restore the Snyderverse, I think a lot of you can identify with Cyborg because some of you feel you're just existing, you're just there, you don't know what your purpose is. And it's very important to know what your purpose is in the world. I know what mine is, and so I operate in it. And it takes very nourishing, nurturing people to help you to understand and bring your full potential of who you are. And even then, it takes a lot of work. Uh, you know, um, Free Palestine. Why am I doing that? I'm doing that because, again, like Cyborg, who helped the single parent mother, I see it as, again, helping the hopeless, the helpless. Cyborg had a heart for people. Even before, he got in an accident, he had a heart for people. And so that was his gift, caring for others. And I'm sure a lot of you care for other people and you don't like what's happening in the world today. And you want to see a resolution to it. And as a result of that, whoever you may be, I don't care where you live in the world, as a result of that, you are Cyborg. Let's talk a little bit about Aquaman. Aquaman's a little different to Cyborg. Okay, Aquaman knows. He knows who his father is. He grew up with his father. Okay? He knew he was different, so he knew these things. But he refused to take on the responsibility of Atlantis. He knew he was the heir of the rightful heir of Atlantis, and he refused to take up that responsibility. He had a certain bitterness inside of him. We do not know exactly why, but he was a loner. He'd move on his own. But the thing that made him, the attribute that made him incredible, is he cared about people. He cared about people, the people who were neglected, the people who were forgotten, the people in destitute positions. And he used his special abilities, as in the Icelandic community, to bring fish to the Icelandic community. He was able to save a man on the sea who, had his boat was drowning. He cares about people. He would show up and care for people. And that was just something he couldn't escape. And because of that, when Atlantis was attacked, he went into gear. And this is what made him join the League. He was a solo guy. He rolled alone. He's not trying to get attention. He's not trying to, because he's trying to avoid being a leader of Atlantis. He's not trying to be a leader of anything. He's just trying to randomly go around helping people, doing kindness. And he ends up in this community. Again, Wonder Woman has a lot to do with this. He ends up in this community. Batman could not get Aquaman to agree. He thought Batman was crazy. But Wonder Woman worked her magic. And, Aquaman ended up joining. And she was able to convince him. Just in case you guys don't know what I'm talking about. Now, he did also interact with Flash. And Flash also had him realize he, cared and he had a heart. And he was a guy kind of going against everybody all the time. But again, it's beautiful to see this. Now, Aquaman, some of you out there, you refuse to embrace your power. You want somebody else to use that power because you're afraid to lead. You're afraid to stand in front of everybody, all the attention be on you, and lead people. And that's okay. But at some time, the situation is going to get dire enough that you will have to speak out and you will have to lead. And so that's what makes you Aquaman. You also care about people. You have a big heart for people. And you have abilities that nobody else has. And you need to use those abilities to ensure that people who do not care about people, very powerful people who do not care about people, are not in positions where they could hurt other people. So you have to understand what you are. Now, let me bring in two other members of the Justice League that were not necessarily, actually, I think it's three other members of the Justice League. So we have Martian Manhunter, who was sitting on the sidelines, blending in with society. And then finally he got the courage because of what the Justice League did particularly Batman leading them, he had the courage to come out of the shadows, reveal himself, and offer his help when the time came. So that was amazing. Martian Manhunter, for those of you who don't know, he's actually a Martian. He's known as John Jones. He'd been living amongst mankind for hundreds of years, assimilating into different things of mankind. In this case, he was assimilating uh, Martha Kent, and he was there to encourage Louis Lane. We see him working along mankind, but not trying to reveal himself, not trying to really heavily influence anything, just working along with mankind. Some of you guys are Martian Manhunter. You don't want to be in the foreground. You don't want to stand out. You work in the different roles and jobs that are given to you, but you're so much more than what you look like. And one day you're going to have to separate yourself from everybody and stand alone uh, with those who are standing up for the right thing. You're going to have to do that. You're different to Cyborg in the sense that Cyborg doesn't know who he is. You know who you are. You have a great history. You know what you're capable of, but you're trying to assimilate into the world with everyone else. You can't do that. You have to be you. You have to stand out. You have to step out into the light. And the day you do that, the better. Okay. Let's go to the other two Green Lanterns. Well, we don't know too much about the Green Lanterns except that they fought in the Great War, and one of them was supposed to visit. Two of them were supposed to visit Bruce Wayne along with Martian Manhunter, and they were supposed to collaborate later on. So they kind of came out the shadows themselves. Now, one sacrificed his life in the Great War, and that one you're seeing up on top of there. John Stewart is the other one, and they were supposed to be this one here. Let me see if I can find him. Hold on a second. I'll see if I see him. That's John Stewart. That's Yalinger. I don't see him, but if I see him, he looks something like a pig. I don't see him. But in the apocalyptic version, he gets killed. But anyway, there's one that kind of looks like a pig. Okay. So there's that. Okay. So what about them? I don't know too much about them, except one sacrificed his life in the Great War. So sacrifice is part of the thing that some of you are going to have to sacrifice your careers and your lives and stuff for that. But you also have John Stewart here, and I forgot what the other. If you know the name of the other Green Lantern, I forgot what his name is. He ends up dead in the apocalyptic vision of Cyborg. If you guys remember who he is, that's cool. I can't remember his name. It's coming to me. And then the other one, he never saw him in his superhero uniform, but that doesn't mean he's not a superhero. Ryan Choi, who will later become the Green Lantern. He's the head of nanotech after Silas Stone dies. And what about him? I don't know too much about him, to be honest with you. But what we do know is he's also one of those analytical, investigative people. And so he ends up being the head of nanotechnology, and he's been introduced, but he's another member of the Justice League. Of course, we know that the Atom, he can change size and dimension and stuff like that. And so some of us have the capability of multiplying. What I mean by that is some of you on here, you're able to attract people and form big groups very quickly. And then you're able to downsize if you need to and get back, down to about one or two people, small groups. So that's what I think of Ryan Choi as the metaphor for being able to be a center for big support of something. You're good at running campaigns, and some people are just good at that, and some people are good also at having intimate settings. We call them organizers, or we also call them events planners. So some of you are event planners. And that's what I think of when I think of the Atom. It's like, somebody who can be big or small. So that's what I'm wanted to show you guys concerning the Justice League. Got a little extra stuff here. I don't know if I'll be able to get it. Yes, here we are. So John Baker, he says, so DCU Brief says first Man of Steel poster versus first Superman poster. So the first Superman poster is over here. And the first Man of Steel poster is over there. And comments by John Baker, he says, one sets a serious, reverent tone. The other looks like a cartoon. I just want to go into the comment section for a second. And I say they don't have money nor the imagination to make something look good. Joss Whedon's Justice League 2017 vibes all over again. Cheap look, WB never learns. Okay, enough of my comments and restore the Snyderverse. Horace FX says, Superman is not Batman. Snyder kills Superman. Most people hated the Snyder Man of Steel film. I'm giving this new Superman a chance. Just have to wait and see how good it is or bad it can potentially be. And John Baker just asked him, who is Snyder? Because dude misspelled the word, which tells you everything you need to know there. Well, I'm just looking at different people's opinions. Ralphie, who's a clown, says someone has some comic book reading to do. Imagine thinking Superman, of all characters, can only have a serious, reverent tone. And he laughs his ass off. If you actually read Superman comics, you know they're not all sunshine and rainbows. And let's just go into that a little bit. Exactly, they're not all sunshine and rainbows, which means they're not all dark and serious either. Thanks for proving my point. Majority of comics aren't hunky-dory because people would get bored. Movies that reflect those are boring and fail. Majority aren't dark and gritty either. It's a mix. There's a literal decade's worth of comics where Superman is all sunshine and rainbows, a beacon of hope, if you will. And does that mean Superman 1978 is boring? I think CMBs can only be one way. CMBs can only be one way is pretty damn sad. Superman 78 was actually pretty serious. It had Goofy Clark and 70s stick for that era, but the overall tone wasn't goofy. Superman started to get campy goofy in Superman 3 and fully in Superman 4, which killed that era of Superman. Same thing happened to Batman. 89 Batman and Batman Returns were dark and serious, very successful, but WB wanted to sell more toys, so they drastically changed tone going into Batman Forever, which was fun, but going campy. And then they doubled down for Batman and Robin, which killed the Batman franchise at the time. Superman Returns was an attempt to revive the franchise with staying connected to Reeves Superman. It didn't work. Nolan revived Batman with the not grounded serious take, then Nolan revived Batman with the grounded, serious take. Then Nolan and Snyder did the same with Man of Steel, which became the highest grossing Superman movie ever. The next movie made even more, so the momentum was there. The audience was in. And so I threw in, John, you're arguing your points literally with a clown. No joke. He said, ha ha ha, whoops. You didn't see that? I guess I wasn't paying attention. And I laughed. He has a way of brightening things up with color, but managing to deliver some emotional development somewhere in his projects. It's like 80% color and comedy, though. Yes and no. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 had some of the most washed out scenes I've ever seen in a CBM, so it could go either way. They really milked that anti-animal, cruelty-free fees in that one. It was less about progressing the characters and more about being sad that their stories were ending, which was all fake because nothing ended. None of the main characters died, and I didn't feel anything for the animal characters like they wanted me to. For me, it stopped being about character stories and more about acting contracts with Marvel. Rarely did it make sense for them to end Wanda the way they did. They retconned all of her show with Agatha. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 basically said maybe they'll be around and just ended. What makes one reverent and one irreverent to you? More stoic tone in the logo versus cartoony. For example, Superman, the movie, versus Superman 4. Or Justice League versus Zack Snyder's Justice League. You can see the tone of the movies in the logos themselves. He's right. PK says, I don't mind that. I like the serious tone, but I'm in the mood for something more lighthearted and cartoonish. But they needed to bring back the general audience. They've lost, and a cartoonish version of Superman isn't going to do that. If the main goal is to cater to the comics community, then it's not going to be successful. It must appeal to the general audience more, or it will fail. Skanky Badger said, and how exactly do you know that then? Look at the box office for the cartoonish Guardians of the Galaxy movies. MCU is not DC, and making DC like the MCU is what killed it. He's right. Superman will attract DC fans, fans of Marvel due to James Gunn directing, comic book fans, and Superman fans. People enjoyed James Gunn's previous CBM work, and people wanted to see a more comic-like Superman, so it will bring in a large audience. Maybe, but anyone outside of the comics community I've shown the new Superman to think the suit looks dumb. They didn't get why it's not Henry, especially since he looks like him, and the S looks weird. Not the reaction you want from general audiences on the first look. Plus, you can't bank on Gunn's name only because his MCU fans did not translate to success with TSS, so we'll see. He's right. Suit reveal on IG alone got over 1 million likes, so I say otherwise. Also, TSS failed because of COVID and the previous SS movie and previous DCU movies. Bad quality universe and a global pandemic inhibiting people from going to the cinema equal bad performance. John Baker says, check the comments on the reveal post though. TSS failed, but not just due to COVID. There were other releases that did fine. People didn't want to go see that movie. The original Suicide Squad movie made almost $800 million and set the standard looks for a generation of Harley Quinn and Joker cosplays and just being dressed up for Halloween. The JA liked it, which showed again they put it on Netflix and it made the top 10 while at TSS didn't. You may feel differently, but people like SS. Yeah, they did. TSS came out just at the end or during the lockdown in most countries, so people would be more cautious about going to the cinema compared to other films, which many released after the first lockdown. Also, JA seems to disagree. JA bought tickets for SS and consistently dress up like them now. It's okay if you didn't like it, but the general audience liked it. And just to add to the point, he's saying that TSS came out at the end or during the lockdown in most countries. My friend, TSS came out around about the same time as Godzilla vs. Kong. Spider-Man No Way Home. I could just go on and on and on of movies that came out at the same time with TSS, and they did fine. Look at the reviews. Hundreds of thousands of people didn't think it was good. Millions bought tickets and purchased it on home video, which didn't happen to TSS. Money says more than reviews do. He's right. Well, I mean, crap films do well sometimes, and good films don't do well sometimes. Dread, B.O., box office bomb, but great film. TSS marketed very well, had a killer cast, and SS was marketed very well, had a killer cast and S-tier soundtrack. And then we saw the film. Yeah, but what Sex Sleuth does not realize is that doesn't change that people are cosplaying SS all over the place. If it's such a shitty movie, like you say, they shouldn't be cosplaying it. No, people like the movie, and that's the point. If people like something, they're going to dress up like it. They're going to get the merchandise, etc. SS merchandising went nuts, okay? Their merchandising sells. Nothing of TSS sells. Then you look at the cosplaying. People cosplay Harley Quinn all the time. Harley Quinn became a big name because of SS. Yeah. TSS, pretty much nothing sells TSS. No one cosplays the TSS Harley Quinn. The characters of TSS, people don't want to remember. People just didn't dig TSS. It's just what it is. So let me say it. Okay, so I just sent that. Jared McDonald says a bright, vibrant Superman movie doesn't mean it has to be cartoonist. I haven't seen any footage yet, but I'm showing general audience reaction from first looks and this poster. I can be proven wrong when it comes out, but so far, most that I've seen outside of the comic book community, they don't get the reboot and ask why it's not Henry. So, in short, what he's basically saying is that, and the reason this is happening is because, of course, WB doesn't have money. So, they have to do basic stuff. And good luck to James Gunn, I mean, on Superman movie, but I don't think it's going to do well. And it's mainly because I think nobody's excited for it. Some people are, but most people are not. KG Crossover says duality of Man of Steel reviews. So this person, one person talks a bad review, and then another person goes on and on and on about how good Man of Steel is. And that's just the way how that goes. I mean, Man of Steel is still being talked about so many years later. Ray Porter, he got a dark side. He got a dark side figure. Good for him, and with the throne and everything. So the dark side gets dark side. It's pretty dope. I may have to continue this another time because this video is long as hell. But before I do that, let me just wrap this up here. Ooh, the sky's overcast, but I'm still gonna go sell. It was bright and sunny a minute ago. Hold on a second, I'm gonna get to that. Okay. Who is your favorite Superman? The winner is Henry Cavill. Surprise, surprise. Henry Cavill is the favorite Superman of everyone. Not surprising. Christopher Reeve is in second place. Other is in third place, and then Brandon Routh is in fourth place. I guess the other is going to be maybe I forget what his name is. Superman and Lewis Superman. So yeah, that's kind of crazy, huh? Let me see if I can find the other thing here. Somebody's calling me, so let me just. Okay, so I told you Henry Cavill is trending. I said that already. Let me see who is this calling me here. I gotta go, guys, but before I do, Jimmy Ain't It says new piece I made dedicated to the two great voices of Darkseid. Yeah. And then let me see here. Let me see what else I got here. That's it. So that's what I have for Restore the Snyder. A lot of time talking about Restore the Snyderverse. Somebody's trying to call me and it's really disturbing my phone. We're almost on 2 hours. I don't want to take much longer than that. Let me just say this though. Let me say this if I can find it. I think I'm going to find it. Okay, here it is. Ryan Dawson, he said, all these wars, all these people murdered in Iraq, Libya, Syria, Yemen, Lebanon, Palestine have been so religious lunatics in Israel. Have been so religious lunatics in Israel. Oh, all these wars, all these people murdered in Iraq, Libya, Syria, Yemen, Lebanon, Palestine have been so religious lunatics in Israel can act out their fantasy. None of these conflicts have been in U.S. strategic interests. They wasted trillions of dollars, took millions of lives, all for Israel. Millions of lives and trillions of dollars. And why? Because the government is the enforcement arm of the donor class, and religion is the brain rot to manipulate the lowest common denominator in supporting policy against their own interest, which he's so correct about. I said not to mention those trillions which could have benefited the American taxpaying people where the U.S. is in its highest year of homelessness. Worth seriously considering. And the American exile said there's no money. It was printed, made up, invented, typed into a keyboard of the Federal Reserve. It can't go anywhere. If it went to the homeless, etc., it would cause massive inflation. I'm against government and all government programs. Taxes as well. Stop taxing. Stop the transfer of wealth. People should work in free markets, save and invest in sound money, not pay tax, and allow markets to develop. Prices will plummet into a deflationary spiral, and all goods and services will get cheaper. But we won't do that because everyone wants the wealth transfer based on inflationary fiat currency. So I had to explain to him that money paid for wars instead of taking care of citizens, no matter how you spin it, that money paid for wars instead of taking care of citizens, no matter how you spend it. That's what I was telling him. Inflation or no, the reality is homelessness is at an all-time high in the U.S. People can't even afford a place to stay while the oligarchs get richer. Wars benefit the few. I also go on to say, understand, no matter what is rumored, the Federal Reserve, as any treasury in any country, has to be backed by gold. If you invest in gold, that will serve as good leverage for you. They're putting it into circulation. New money is not an issue, but here's where they could cheat. They put new money into circulation, remove old money, but redistribute through shady deals involving corporations or establishments they or their buddies hold. That way, most of the money stays circulated in the elitist hands instead of distributed among the common man. Example of this is Biden's son, Hunter Biden, involved in alleged affiliated cover for money laundering, being on the board of Burisma, a Ukrainian oil company, having no background in the energy industry. Slovinsky, head of Burisma, was a former environmental and natural resource minister. In short, that should go to the public or working person. The money that should go to the public or working person gets embezzled into the coffers of politicians and elite through theft, inflated contracts, etc. So the public never share in the wealth. Printing new money can cover that up, especially if you can track money these days. So you have to burn the old money, which they can't track, and therefore, So that's what's going on. The Federal Reserve, the money that's there in the Federal Reserve, remember, it's money that our taxes paid for. Now, with respect to taxes, this is what I had to say to him. As for taxes, governments have to tax to gain revenue. The majority of taxes come from you, the citizens. Businesses are not taxed as heavily as citizens. After World War II, the government began taxing proportionally, that 1%, and it had money to hire unemployed people and distribute wealth. By the way, the most ideal situation to embezzle money is through war. Land theft, renaming places, and stealing oil resources not only happens in foreign countries the military-industrial complex goes into, but also helps steal money in the US or UK where these companies are. Okay, so that's all that. I think what he doesn't understand is governments. He's talking about he's like a Republican, so he's like no government and stuff. But you have to have government. You have to have some sort of government at least. So no, money's printed, but money's backed by something. It's backed by gold. That's why they talk about inflation. Inflation is where your money is more than the thing that backs it. Yeah. Then they start going to things like imaginary things like credit and so on. So yeah. Anyway. Bullies aren't just teenagers in school. They're also adults in offices with nice titles who think they have the right to break the spirits of others so they can feel better about their miserable lives. It's so true. So true. This is what's going on in Syria. They just murdered this guy here, a civilian in there. The wife is trying to hold on to him, and they're just wreaking havoc in there. They killed the taxi driver over some real. This is in Palestine. Dead children. This was a debate. So Donald J. Trump, he said this: the idea that BRICS countries are trying to move away from the dollar while we stand by and watch is over. We require a commitment from these countries that they will neither create a new BRICS currency nor back any other currency to replace the mighty US dollar. or they will face 100% tariffs and expect to say goodbye to selling into the wonderful U.S. economy. They can go find another sucker. There's no chance that the BRICS will replace the U.S. dollar in the international trade, and any country that tries should wave bye-bye to America. That's what Donald Trump said recently. I was just saying, though, if there were benefits to trading with the U.S., these countries would trade. But what you say has long since expired. They have partners which can offer much more than the U.S. can. Your blunt brute force methods you are now known for and bullying tactics will only push them further away. They are already trading elsewhere and not dependent on the U.S. economy because you sanctioned them. What you're doing is redundant. That policy will fail. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, Venezuela, Cuba, South Africa, Brazil, already sanctioned. You're doing absolutely nothing to them. That's the problem. He doesn't realize all that bluffing. You already sanctioned them. You're already 100% sanctioning Chinese goods, their electric cars to America. So they're selling to Europe and other countries. They're doing their transactions, and they're going to continue to do their transactions, just not with the U.S. dollar. I think America's trying to intimidate Europe so that the Western bloc stays and holds, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think maybe Saudi Arabia and Turkey may join with the West, but other than that, everybody else is going to do trade with BRICS. Every country, I believe even my country, will do trade with BRICS eventually as BRICS starts to rise. A multipolar world looks very much like the thing that's going to happen, and there's nothing they can do to stop it. They're going to try to invade and dominate, but the most powerful army in the world is Russia. The most rich and economic power in the world right now is China, and that's just what it is. India is also on the rise. There are three superpowers. We have a military superpower, which is Russia. We have a economic superpower in China, and right behind it is India. America is nowhere in the picture. So I'm trying to bully people and use hegemony and use their intelligence agencies and stuff. I mean, they're going to have a lot of luck and a lot of chance. What happened in Syria was a strategic defeat, meaning I believe the Syrian forces were ordered to withdraw from Syria. And I think it's like I got another observer said, I think it's a trap. I think Israel and Turkey, they're walking into a trap. And now the Syrian people are the people who suffer the most, just like the Libyan people and just like the Lebanese people. But I think it's a trap. I think it's a strategic move to withdraw and let them dump resources and money into Syria and waste out, just like how America got Russia to go into Afghanistan and it drained the Russian economy. I think that's what they're looking for. And Israel's economy is already in shit. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting because there was no resistance. They didn't provide any resistance. They just withdrew. The only problem I have is with the Christian population in Syria, as well as some Muslim populations in Syria, and the massive amount of death and mayhem that's going to happen there. And the fact that they've enabled Israel and America's enabled ISIS, after Russia was containing ISIS, now in Iran, they have allowed this ISIS group to literally run Syria, which is crazy. So it's going to be nuts. We'll see how it all pans out in the end. These people are brutal killers. We've seen them, behead people and stuff. And that was not Hamas. Hamas doesn't do that. That's not Hezbollah. Hezbollah doesn't do that. But they have associated, and ISIS is not in league with Hamas and Hezbollah or Yemen or the Yemenis. So it's crazy. Or the Iraqis. The Iraqis been fighting against ISIS. So it's gonna be crazy. Why America and Israel so desperate to try to dominate things that they would allow this to happen. Even Turkey being in on it because they want to get a pipeline running through Syria, and they also want to cut off supply routes to Hezbollah. They think this is the way to win. We'll see. This is the short game. We'll see how the long game goes. As I said before, I'm not ruling out Syria getting back into the hands of the Syrians, and Israel getting kicked out of Syria and all of that. I think war is a very evil thing, and these people are going to learn very quickly when they start losing lives and they start losing their they start losing a lot of lives, they're going to learn very quickly Syria is not a place to mess around with. These countries have been around forever, okay, since the beginning of time. So I'm pretty sure Syria will still be there at the end of the day. But anyway, that's what I got for you guys there. There's a lot more to say, but I just wanted to cover that. Donald J. Trump, I think he's clueless on I think that rhetoric, that big bluffing rhetoric, it's not going to materialize into policy. That's for sure. That's not the way to go about doing it. So, as I said before, if they don't free Palestine, I am telling you right now, this empire is falling. It is collapsing. Israel's empire is collapsing. The American empire is collapsing. Europe's empire is collapsing. Europe's in a deep shit because basically Germany is sabotaged. Germany, their industry has been sabotaged for years now because of sanctions put on Russia. And America's been, extorting a lot of money from Germany. European Union, Europe, the UK need to grow some balls. I saw a former Tory minister talking about the mistakes they made with the settlers in Israel, that they shouldn't have listened to all this anti-Semitism talk and stuff. Now they having regrets after Israel's almost full-blown annexed Palestine and the West Bank. But it doesn't matter if they annex Palestine or the next bank. The Palestinians are going to get back their territory because it's war crimes. And no matter what, we're going after these guys. The ICC's already launched warrants, and that means the ICC is going after them. So it's just a matter of time. And the leaders, if they don't have the will, the people will make sure that happens. And they will depose of these leaders. And people think it's very hard to depose of these leaders. No, it's not. No, it's not. Everything can change on the drop of a dime. Don't think that. You guys have a lot more power than you, but you just need to step out like the Justice League. You need to step out and start doing things. It's about doing, not talking. All right, I'll catch you guys later. I am Christ, I am disciple. Peace to everybody. 2 hours and 8 minutes, 26 seconds. It's been fun. Don't forget to smash the like button. Bye.